Okay, we're live.
All right, so this is the Western Board of Education Communications Committee. It is Friday, March 3rd, about 9:06 a.m., and we'll call the meeting to order. I think the first order of business is approval of the minutes from hold on a moment, does somebody have the executive of our last meeting? I'll check board book. It is approval of our February 2023 meetings. I don't know if you've had a chance. Sharon's not joining us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've
I
had
can
a
make a
chance
motion to
to
approve.
review the meeting minutes if there's any.
Yeah, I can make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right. I second it. So the minutes for the February Communications Committee meeting has been approved. Next order of business is discussion about the new website. Take it away, Dan.
All right. So on Monday, we went officially live with our website. It was pretty seamless. Obviously, it takes a while going live with the website. You can't get certificates until we change the global settings and all that stuff. But we have gone live, and it went without a hitch. No major issues. The feedback we have gotten so far has been extremely positive. People like the cleanliness of it and how it's much more simple to navigate. There are some things that we're cleaning up still, things that were, how because we had a moment of time where there was an overlap between when the website had been transitioned, copied over, and the old website was still up and running. There were some things that were done to the old website but not updated on this current website. So we've made those changes. We've updated everything to the latest and greatest. We've integrated all of the calendars. David, I know we had discussed, pulling individual appointments off of the calendar, like the town of Weston. As of right now, that is not a function of the way their calendar works, but they are putting that in what they call a feature request. So to see if maybe down the road people can pull off individual appointments. But there is a subscribe button so they can subscribe to the calendar as they have done in the past. But yeah, we're live with the site, and the feedback's been great, and we welcome any more feedback. And that's actually where I'm going after this meeting. Is I'm going to go meet with the high school PTO to talk to them and get some feedback on, from a parent perspective, and see what everybody has to say. And we're going to keep it moving and keep the website as clean as possible and service as many people as we can. And so if anybody ever has any feedback, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, and I have a couple of small pieces of feedback. I haven't extensively gone really deep into the website, but
Sure.
As the propeller head that I am, of course, Monday morning, I was waiting for it to go live. I checked it, I think, around 8, and it was the old one. Around maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock, it was live with the new. Does that sound about right?
That's about right. Yep.
Okay. So I was using my iPad, and I noticed two things just from a layout perspective.
Okay, what's that?
So across the top menu where the black bar is, adding the pupil personnel services link, which is really long,
Yeah.
on an iPad, which means on an iPhone for sure, it wraps to a second line. So the
Okay.
black, right? So it really doesn't look very good. So I'm curious if we can do something to probably shorten. Try and figure out all the menu choices in the black bar, shorten it so that when you look at it on an iPad, and you have to actually rotate it, because what I even did was I looked at it on the iPad in landscape mode,
Yep.
and portrait mode, and of course it wrapped. And then I'm like, okay, let me see if landscape mode it changes, and landscape mode it wrapped as well. So definitely look at that black bar. It's
Okay, so it wrapped in either orientation. Okay.
Yep.
So
The other thing,
I will take a look and see if I can shorten it. Do you remember if the menu to the left of it that said curriculum and instruction, did that wrap as well or no?
no, I believe only pupil personnel services is the last menu option, right?
Correct.
On the far right.
Yep.
Only that wrapped. The one prior doesn't wrap.
Okay, perfect. So I kind of have a gauge of like what's the maximum number of characters I can go before it wraps. So I'll see if I can fit the name in there So it's like I don't want to put PPS because not everybody knows what PPS stands for. So, but I'll work with Tracy on how we can shorten that up so it doesn't wrap.
Yeah, or maybe if there's anything to shorten up on the other ones
Sure.
prior to it. The other thing I noticed on both the iPad and just a web browser, but I noticed it first with the iPad, as you're scrolling, you have to obviously touch the screen of the iPad. When you touch over the pictures, they turn black. And so I'm like, that's kind of weird. And then when I looked at it on the computer, if you hover over the picture, it, I guess, gives you some navigation information.
Yes. It
So,
almost like pulls up the individual Instagram post.
right. When you're looking at it from the iPad, or you're looking on the website on the iPad, and you start using your finger to scroll, obviously your finger is going to come in contact with those pictures because that's the whole width of the screen.
Yeah.
It then becomes a black box on the iPad.
Yeah, I see what you're saying because like I'm looking at it now, and if I just hover over a picture but not click, it almost like selects it, right? And you get that. So okay, I get what you're saying. So I'll reach out to Gabbard for that because that's their Instagram hook. So it's not the built-in Instagram hook that you get from their website. So I will give them that feedback of does it need to change color when you hover and only show the pop-up when you click on it? You see what I'm
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right. Or like I am shocked at how much, I looked at statistics, how many people use iPads and mobile devices as their primary web browser. I mean, I'm sure if you look at the statistics of our website, probably the vast majority are using mobile devices.
Oh yeah.
To me, it's insane. I mean, I still have a desk phone at my office that I prefer to use over my cell phone. So I mean, but the navigation on an iPad device, to me, it's a little, it needs some work if if that's the biggest audience. So that's my initial feedback on the website is those two things. I love though, as you scroll to the bottom, that the upcoming calendar appointments sort of flash and refresh.
Yes.
I really like that because it really draws your eye to upcoming meetings and happenings in the district.
And that brings up a good point. So Chad and Dave, if you guys can take a look specifically at that piece on the website, I'm not looking for it now, but feedback on it. So that section of the homepage of the district and the school pages, you've got the calendar on the right and the upcoming events on the left, right? So, and the upcoming events, it scrolls. One of the options we have is how far do we want to scroll? Like how many events do we want to scroll? Like I could have it scrolling all the way through to next year if I wanted. Obviously, I didn't. The default was 30 events, and I thought that was way too much. So I brought it down to like 11 or 12. So silly feedback, but honestly, let me know what you're thinking. If you take a look and say, you know what, it scrolls and it shows too many events before it scrolls back to like this week's upcoming events, let me know what you guys think.
And so
Dan, can you share your screen? Because I'm looking at the things right now, but I want to make sure I'm looking the right thing because it populates like 6 at a time.
Yeah.
It's not really a true scroll, I don't think, but I want to make sure I'm looking at the right place.
Yep. So I'm going to scroll up. Hang on one second. So if we're at the top of the page, right? If we're going to scroll down a little bit.
Yep.
Right here. So this section right there.
Yep.
Right. So it's going to scroll around, and what happens is, I think like I said, I selected like 10 or 12 of the next events before it goes back. But I can make that more events before it goes back to the top or less events before it goes back to the top.
I can give you some pretty easy real-time feedback only because I do this as a parent all the time. Often if a parent's looking at this, it's because they have a very concrete thing they're trying to figure out, like what's next year's Christmas vacation or when is the whatever. So I actually think because of the way you have it laid out, more is probably better in this situation, or more to the point of what we have released so far. Or if you want to keep it more minimal, then just give the parents some guidance, like to see more dates, click here, or to see full calendar, click here, because we just need some guidance about where to find everything if we need it.
Okay.
And I'll give you some the inverse feedback. So,
okay. Well, there you go. So you got a discrepancy already.
Right. June will have to settle this for us in Sharon's absence. Um, so I think two parts. I think upcoming events at the top of the column is pretty much what it should be. Upcoming events. So just to confirm, you can't set a time period. It's a number of events, right? You can't say 2 weeks. You can only say 10 events. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that I'll get back to you on that, but I'm like 90% positive it's number of events, not number of days.
Okay. So I'll give you two pieces of feedback about that. If it's the number of events, then I think either leaving it upcoming events is good, and it should only be, I would say, I think I agree with what you said about 10 to 12 events. I think this should cover about 2 weeks, and it's not going to be guaranteed 2 weeks, but one can figure five
Right.
or six events per week on a typical week. So I think if it's the next, ideally we can do next 2 weeks, right? And maybe we change the heading from upcoming events to something like shorter, but upcoming 2 weeks or next 2 weeks or whatever the case may be, or something like that.
Okay.
And then to answer your question, Chad, or kind of for your feedback, on the right is the Weston District calendar.
Yep.
So yeah, so I think.
Yeah, David, let me jump in. You're right about this. I withdraw my suggestion. Let's go with what you're pointing out, because you really do have that comprehensive thing there. The only thing that's confusing about it is you then essentially have to go through to like August to discover that next year's calendar is not released yet. But I think you're right, David. It's more comprehensive. Let's leave it simpler like you have it. Then my only point would be maybe we should figure out if it's going to be this like idea of the next 2 weeks events or whatever. When does that roll over? Meaning, I guess you'd have to keep that live every few days, Dan, because you don't want to get to the end of a 2 week period and then all of a sudden have the next 2 weeks populate, but you're like, 1 day or something as a gap between that. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I'm
Yeah, I think I do.
When would the 2 weeks reload?
every day. Every day
Yeah,
is the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Right.
it rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's not something that that's a setting that I just basically say like show the next 14 events.
Yeah.
And so that's it. So once one event starts, it now brings in the next event.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
So go with David's much smarter feedback than mine. David, you carry the day.
But what I will bring in, what I will also say though, is that there is a link. Maybe I need to draw people's attention to it in a better way. Under district information, you have this district calendar.
Yeah.
Which is a more embedded calendar of events.
Yeah.
With the printable calendar, because I know a lot of people like looking at the printable calendar specifically for days off, right? So if you see over here, we've got this year and next year's printable calendars, as well as the actual calendar of events with the text specifically in the day itself, where you can now go and scroll over by months. Is this more of what you're looking for, Chad?
Yeah, it's fine. It's good because maybe people navigate to the district page always before the school page, so it's more immediate anyway. So I think it's good.
Okay.
And Dan, one more piece of feedback about the calendar. If you go back to the scrolling calendar, it seems to me like there's a lot of wasted real estate with the two blocks, the square block that says the month, and then the square block with the day. And I'm sure you can't do anything about this, but this is the opportunity to give you feedback. Is there a way to have a different layout? I like the layout itself, but I'd prefer, in this scenario, I can see 3 events. I would prefer to see 6 if each blue square could have, for example, March 10th in one blue square the size of the blue square for March.
So now I get what you're saying. My question would be, how does this upcoming events look on a phone? So in other words, it would still take up the same amount of real estate on the page, but the text would get smaller, right? And we'd show like the next 6. Would that be too small if you're looking on it on your phone is my question. I don't know if I have the ability for that. I can look into seeing if I could increase that. But again, I want to balance that. I don't want people to say, I can't see it on my phone. The text is too small. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll take a look at it. But I think as you were talking, I thought you might be referring to, for example, March 10th. finance/facilities committee meeting, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. If it was only one block of March, the 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. might fall off. If you look at the Board of
Yeah.
Education meeting for March 13th, certainly the time would fall off. It just wouldn't fit. But I sort of conversely said to myself, if I'm not interested in finance and if I am interested in finance and facilities, I'll click on it and I'll get more information. So it kind of goes back to one of the things we talked about really early on, which is people primarily know what they're looking for, right? So,
100%.
right. So I'm not looking for finance. And I think if we can get it, if we can do double the amount of events in this screen here by having less information about each event, just the name of the event, I know if I want to attend the finance and facilities. I'm not sure on what might be happening on March 15th, but looking at the screen here, I don't know what's happening on March 15th. I have to scroll to the next screen. So
Got it.
and I looked on my iPhone, it's actually not bad. On my iPhone with a really
Okay.
small screen, the calendar actually looks pretty good as well.
Okay.
So yes, even with the word wrapping of finance facilities committee meeting, just next to the word March. Yeah. So basically the feedback is if you can ask them if there was a way to change the calendars, the layout, so that you maybe get the day, the month and the day
Yeah.
in the same block, and then you know what I'm saying? So we get double the amount of events per scroll.
Something leads me to believe that when I was looking at the settings of upcoming events, it gives the option of like show how many upcoming events and how many simultaneously. I think it gives both options, so I can take a look. And if it doesn't, I'll request that from Gabbert to see if they have the ability to add that as an option. It can't be too big of a deal for them to implement something like that. So I'll take a look at that. 100%.
Yeah, and again on the iPad, on the iPhone piece, just kind of looking at it now, it definitely looks. What it does on the iPhone is instead of having two columns, the upcoming events on the left and the Western District on the right, it stacks the columns. So as you're scrolling through, the whole width of the iPhone screen is upcoming events. You scroll further down, the next block below is right. So yeah, if there were a way to get more events with smaller blue boxes, a slightly, without making the column longer, I think that's kind of what you're looking at, Dan, is that
Yeah.
you can certainly make the column much longer,
Right.
but that, yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Any other feedback so far?
I have a piece of feedback, and this is really just a jumping off point for a discussion. I know I am like the harbinger of like the tech drumbeat, and I hate to always bring up the big thorny philosophical issues, but it's because a neighbor flagged this for me. And I know this would be a pretty significant rethinking of it. So I'm just flagging it for you so you can think about this for the next like months and even years, honestly, which is the parent brought up to me. They're like, does the school have permission to use my kid's picture?
Yes, every year. Every year, there is an annual permissions that parents are asked to sign off on in the parent portal that gives questions such as allowed to put my child's picture in print, allowed to put my child's picture online, allowed to put my picture's name in print, allowed to put my child's name online. So that is an annual permissions list. That is an opt-out.
I see.
And so the issue is the district asks this for families every single year. They put it in each school usually puts it in their update. There's a link to it, but not everybody fills it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do have that list. And what happens is each school has the list of no's, of the people who have said no, their children cannot be picked, their face cannot be online or in print. And so the teachers are the staff are very well aware that they cannot take pictures of specific students. And we give them tools to not make that student feel left out. If they're taking like a class picture, we say, then just don't do the class picture. So if you want to take a picture of students doing work, you angle it so you're not showing that student.
I see. And is it, can you opt in on various things? Like I'm just thinking about they didn't get this specific, but the question would be like, can you opt in? Like, obviously I bet a lot of parents would want their kids in like the class directory and the school photo, stuff like that, but they might not want them on the Instagram feed on the front of the website. Is there ways to opt in for some but not others?
Well, it's not as granular as as you're saying, but it does say like be listed in the class directory
Yeah,
or online, and
I
those are
see.
two separate things.
I see.
And
Okay.
the majority, like 99% of families say yes to
Yeah.
posting pictures online.
Okay.
So every year there's only a handful of families who say no. But
And
we want to respect their decision.
And does that happen? And what I mean by that, I don't mean to put you in a spot, so you don't even have to answer this question actually, but it's more of like a procedural question for us to figure out. Are the people who are populating the Instagram feeds, do they have enough information to make sure that they're sticking with those
Yes.
restrictions and requirements? Okay.
Yes, that's what I was saying before. So the Instagram pages are run by the administration.
Yeah.
They're not run by the staff members. So
Yeah.
the administration are very well aware of the students whose families have elected to not allow their students' name and picture to be online.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. The teachers are the principals and the assistant principals are aware of that. So if a teacher takes a picture and sends it online. Now, teachers don't post personal stuff like their classes on their personal Instagram page. So this is stuff that's official Instagram account, like the official Weston Middle School, the official Weston Public Schools.
Right.
Let's say a teacher emails Lisa, hey, look at this great picture. Lisa is aware of what students are not allowed, and Lisa will respond back and say, sorry, I can't post this picture. So-and-so is not allowed to have their picture online.
Yeah. So then this is not really a piece of feedback for now. It's a piece of feedback to keep in mind for like the next year and even two, which is I fully recognize the convenience of the Instagram feeds being the primary way that we keep the website really current and of the moment. And I recognize people's sort of hunger for engagement and things like that. But I will flag it, if you've been paying attention to the headlines, people are broadly, nationally, becoming more concerned with social media's impact on young people, and even like some of the bills that you've been seeing people populate about like restrictions for that. So the question really is like, over time, do we want to consider migrating off of Instagram as a primary way to keep the banner totally current and relevant? And is there a way to curate that content that would not be reliant on Instagram? And I'm not saying we have to do that now or even contemplate that now, but I'm just flagging for you, Dan, to think about that, because it'd be a lot of work, I recognize, to try to shift that in any way. But I do think it's a question that you will hear from parents more and more over the next couple of years.
So I will make a quick comment about that. That was a discussion that was had, and the answer was no, we won't be doing that as of right now, because if we use stagnated pictures over time, remember that we don't have webmasters.
Yeah.
These positions of updating the website are done by the admin assistants most of the time, or myself at the district level. And so what has happened in the years I've been running school district websites is the old school way of uploading photos. Those photos then get stale, and all of a sudden people are saying, hey, Dan, on the main page of this school's website are pictures of kids who graduated 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is a way to streamline, and because this is an Instagram feed, I don't see why we're posting stuff. And so I guess we can have a larger philosophical discussion. I don't want to take up all the time today about that, but that's adding a lot of additional work onto staff members when the whole point of us going to this new website was to streamline processes. But I do understand your concern.
Yeah, and that's why I gave the caveat of like, this is not a conversation we have to have right now, or even feedback you have to integrate, but just flagging it for you, because I think people are going to ask about this more and more, especially if you look at some of the things that are beginning to percolate through Congress, et cetera. So,
and I think I'll bridge the gap, because I think I see both sides of it. I think what Dan is that Instagram is the back end tool that's easy to interface with, and that's where the pictures are being dumped. What Chad is saying is creating more opportunity for our students to go to Instagram is something we should be looking at moving away from. So what is the fix ultimately is going to be, is there a tool that's going to become available for WordPress where perhaps, and I'm oversimplifying it, it might exist today, where teachers can as easily upload pictures that get them published to the website as it is right now to upload pictures to Instagram. It seems to me like we're using Instagram's back end. We're not so much, right? We're not so much supporting Instagram. We're certainly not as a district saying Instagram is where you should go. But what we're using, because of Instagram's ease of use, we're using its back end. So I think what Chad is asking and what Dan is saying we don't have yet today is, or sorry, reverse order. What Dan is saying is, I need an easy way for the administration to upload pictures. And the easy way to do it right now is to hook into Instagram. And what Chad is saying is, I want to try and move away from pushing people's eyes onto Instagram. So what we have to do is wait, or maybe not wait, proactively keep our eyes out for a tool that will provide the ease of Instagram without it going to Instagram. That sort of, I think, bridging both concerns.
Yeah. Well bridged, David. Well bridged.
Call me Sweden. Or Switzerland.
Switzerland. I was going to say Switzerland. Yeah.
So.
Well, keep pounding away at the website as you're visiting it casually. Let me know and any feedback, and it doesn't have to wait until the monthly communication meeting. Feel free to email me and the public at the same time, as well. Anybody who's going to be watching this meeting, please feel free to email me with any of your questions, concerns, or feedback about the webpage.
You got it.
Now, I did want to dovetail one last thing. It's not on the agenda, but Chad brought it up, so I did want to just mention it real quick. A plug for March 30th. I will be hosting with the SROs, Jason Kim and Joe McGowan, Families in the Digital Age Forum. On March 30th at 7 p.m. It will be a virtual meeting, and we're just going to be discussing things like social media, the dangers of social media, phishing, because students are now, phishing doesn't stop, right? It doesn't care how old somebody is. So how can students protect themselves from being phished? Even things like, I want to go over like ChatGPT with parents, so they're aware of what ChatGPT is. We've been having a lot of conversations about that in the education circles, but I don't know how aware parents are of that. So yeah, we're going to be having that forum on March 30th at 7 p.m. Virtually, and it's called Families in the Digital Age.
Yeah, Dan, I'm just looking it up. There was one item that I definitely wanted to email you about, and you bring it up now. It's timely. Yeah. I'm trying to find the article. It's sensitive, but there was a situation about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I can't remember in which state. It wasn't Connecticut, but a child was basically phished. An email was sent to this child, purporting to be somebody else, entice the child into sending nude pictures. Then they tried to get the child to pay a ransom, and the child commit suicide.
Oh, jeez.
Right. And so I wanted to, it's horrible, but it might be something that you can insert into the March 30th topic when it comes to phishing, because and if I find the article, I'll send it to you.
Yep.
But it started out where basically a child was enticed into sending nude pictures of themselves to what they thought was somebody who was interested in them. And it ended with the child taking his life because the person said, you must now pay me $1,000, I don't know what the dollar amount was, but pay me some amount of ransom. Otherwise, I'm going to release these pictures on the internet.
So so Jason Kim and Joe McGowan, part of their presentation that they do for students every year, it does go over things like that, never send pictures like that, how to identify phishing. But David, you and I have spoken ad nauseum. These phishing schemes are not a prince who needs $1 million sent anymore. They are so savvy. They look perfect. You don't have, the easiest way back in the day to check for phishing messages, you were looking for misspellings or bad English. That's gone. So how can we empower the students? And so Jason, Kim, and Joe have been doing a phenomenal job with that. But that's something I think we need to keep on hitting with families, not just the students, not just the kids, but the parents as well. How can we not, fall for this? What can you do to identify that this is a phishing? You can't just say, well, don't send illicit pictures, right? How do we expand on that to students? You can't just say no, we have to give context. And so I think it'll be a good opportunity to have these discussions.
Yeah, and a lot of it too is just making students feel comfortable going to a parent or maybe somebody in school and say, hey, I received this,
Yes.
is this legitimate? I mean, we obviously in the IT business, we see these emails all the time. And the most common one that we see that clients don't want to email us about, but a few will, is I had turned your webcam on and I saw the websites that you visited. I'm sure you've seen these, and I won't fill in too many extra blanks, but people are like, is this legit? This can't be legitimate,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So part of what maybe also you guys talk about on March 30th, if appropriate, is to get students to feel like they have a safe person who
Yes.
won't judge them.
Yes.
And maybe that's a guidance counselor, a parent.
Yes.
It's tough, right? A kid's not going to necessarily naturally go to their parent, but somebody who they implicitly trust, whether it's an SRO, a principal, ask your student who, if they had a situation they didn't feel comfortable talking to the parent about, who is their go-to in the school. Maybe that's a conversation. I know I'm going to have that conversation with my kid when it's appropriate about, if you ever feel like you don't feel comfortable coming to me or mom about something, who would you talk to? Would you talk to your aunt, Jill? Would you talk to somebody in school, one of your friends' parents? Like, who is that person? Because although you hope that never happens, you need to know who you're going to go to when you feel like you need, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to give you that feedback. And if I find the article,
please do.
Google it, I'll send it to you, because it's a horrible story.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we want to try to prevent that as much as possible. So that's why, Chad was kind of the catalyst for me having this type of a session. So, we'll start this, and hopefully this is the beginning of a series that we can do over the next few years for families.
All right. I have one extra small new order, a new business. I reached out, I believe we as a group talked about asking the first select person to publish upcoming Board of Ed meetings. If it wasn't us, it was a small group that I communicate with through, I believe it was us, because Sharon was on board with it. Town Hall Happenings. I guess our select person publishes a weekly newsletter.
Right.
Here's my question. I reached out to her. I basically said, is this something you'd be willing to publish in your weekly thing? She said yes. I was hoping that she had somebody in her staff that would just go to our district calendar and pull up this coming weeks. The feedback I got from her was, if you push the information to me, I will publish it. So my question is, do we have somebody, and I don't know if it would be June or somebody in the district. I did it a couple of times, but I can't be that point person. She's asking that by noon on Friday, if we want upcoming Board of Ed meetings to appear in her Town Hall Happenings, we should push the information to her about next week's meetings by noon on Fridays. Now, I can go back and say we really don't have anyone that can do that. Since you have an administrative assistant, would it be possible for your administrative assistant to pull the information? But I don't want to overstep. So do we have someone that I don't want to give more work to anybody, certainly not you, June and Dan, if it's something that it's too much. So yeah.
So that is I send any meeting that I am responsible for, I send to Sean Amato, who's at Town Hall, to post. That's just a matter of course. That's been going on for decades. Like, they they get notified of what's coming up.
Okay. So would it be possible, or so if Samantha said, Samantha's words to me basically were, or my email to her was, can you publish Board of Education meetings for the following week when you send out your town hall happenings on Friday? She said, sure, no problem. You just need to send me the information about next week's events. Do you do it on a weekly basis? Could you just add her as a VC?
Yeah. So it's got to go to someone else, and it has to be a summary of the upcoming week.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Sam wants it evident. Sam said to me, send it directly to her. She does a newsletter herself.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you send these kinds of meetings on like it doesn't have to be on Fridays. It basically has to be prior to noon on Friday for the following. So for example, today we'd want to push to her before noon Board of Education meetings for next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can
talk to Lisa about that as well.
Yeah.
Can we talk to Lisa about that? See what we could do, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I will do it today, and I'll CC you, Dan, and no, I'll CC you. I'll CC you, Dan, and you, June. Right. So you see just kind of the format I sent it to Sam in the past. It's really straightforward. It's just a teaser to put in our town hall happenings. No detail really, other than I'll send it to you. If you guys can figure out a way to get her the information, I just don't want it to be reliant on me. As much as I'd love to have the bandwidth to do it, I don't. I don't have a desk job. As is obvious by calling this, I have a desk. I just don't work at it. So yeah. So I will send today's to Sam. I'll CC you, Dan, and you, June, so you kind of see what I send to her. And if we can come up with some way that within the group of central office or somebody, or maybe even have a conversation with her, and we can maybe ask her to have her admin assistant to just pull it instead of us pushing it. But if we can look at the ability for us to push it to her, that would be ideal. If we can't push it to her, then I can go back and say, hey, this is really valuable information the community would benefit from. Can you pull it from us through your admin assistant? All right.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So in that case, any other new business we want to talk about? All right. That's not your red phone, is it, Dan?
No, I'm good.
That's your reminder to start heading out.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is.
All right. All right. So in that case, then I think we'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All right, everybody. We will see you, I guess, at the regular Board of Education meeting, I believe, coming Monday. Is that right?
This Monday? Come on, let me see. Is it?
No, I think
13th.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a week early. Okay.
Yeah.
I am so looking forward to it. I was a week early. All right. Well, everybody have a good weekend. And if we don't talk sooner, we'll see each other in about a week and a half.
All right. Bye, June. Bye, David. Bye, Dan.
Bye, everyone.